So once that kicks in, we are being recorded. So just be aware of that. Make sure you don't say anything that you don't want the world to hear. The videos are posted publicly. There's no access passwords or anything like that. So other people can search them and find them if they want to. So if there's something you need to talk to me about that you don't want recorded, let me know and we can shut off the recording. I apologize for the top of my head being cut off here right now. The way my desk is set up, I got a shelf above my desk and it's coming a little low. So we're going to try to get adjusted the next couple of days and get a different web camera so that you can see me a little better. Because all know that's why you're here, is to see me, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with our administrative stuff. Just a show of hands, how many of you have used Blackboard? Nobody. So this is one of those groups that usually hasn't used Blackboard much. So let's go through how to get into Blackboard. So if you go to any web browser, go to witc.edu. Brings you to our home page. From our home page, there's two options for Blackboard. There's a direct link to Blackboard here. I generally use My Campus because that'll bring you to all your links, your email, Blackboard, and all the other tools that are available to you as a student. So if you click on My Campus, it'll ask you to put in your username and password. Your username is just your student ID number. Your password should have been sent to you. Typically, I know it used to be the first two letters of your first name, first two letters of your last name, and last four digits of your social security number. I'm not sure what the format is this year, if they've made changes or not, but you should have received notice. If you can't find it, ask and we'll help you figure it out. So anyway, once you get here, Blackboard is one of your links to go into. Your email is also there, by the way. Email is this Office 365 application /email. Because of the format right now, with everything having to be taught over the network, or most things having to be taught over the network, I really do highly encourage you to find some way to check your email every day. I know some groups typically using email and Blackboard has not been a common thing in the past. I've had several groups in the past that have never logged into Blackboard. Unfortunately, this semester, that's just not going to be an option. We're going to need some sort of communication back and forth to pass documents, and email and Blackboard really is the easiest way to make it happen. So, you go into Blackboard, there'll be a list of your classes here. You'll open your class just by clicking on it. It'll bring up a page that looks something like this. The first thing it'll take you to is going to be an announcement. All this is telling you that this is applied math for this semester. There's really only 3 places you need to go look for stuff. Course information, which is where we're going to go in just a minute. That has pretty much all the information you need for the course. Course tools, that'll take you to my email address if you don't have it already. Or you can give you a list of emails. You can actually select classmates to email them if you need to talk to a classmate. And then My Grades will show you the grade book so you can see how your scores are lining up for the semester. The last thing down here is if you need to log in from home, and we'll talk about that in a second because you will need to log in outside of the classroom here at some point. That's the link. If you click on that link, it'll take you directly to this class. Otherwise, you can go to bluejeans.com and use that meeting ID to find this course as well. There's one more option I'll show you in a little bit. You can log in on your phone, but that all you're going to hear is audio. You're not going to see video that way, but it's better than nothing. Now, I'd mentioned logging in on your own. The way this class is scheduled, we have on a Tuesday and Wednesday, you guys are scheduled. You have a classroom. You can log in from home like some of you have, or you can come to the classroom on WITC at WITC in room 165. On Thursday, there's no room scheduled. but there is still class. What I was told is that all of you have at least an hour after this class before you have to be into your next class. So when they did scheduling, they assumed you had time that you could log into this class from home and then make it here in time for your other classes. So they didn't schedule a classroom for us. This has happened to a few of my classes for the semester, that at least one day out of the week they didn't schedule a classroom. Well, that's fine, but I understand that some of you don't necessarily have internet access at home. So I'm giving you this warning up front that by Thursday you need to find some way to be able to log into this class without being able to come to a WITC classroom. Whether that's logging in from home if you have the ability, or if you don't, go to the library and tell them there and make an appointment. You have to make a reservation so that they have a computer ready for you and you can use that to log into class on Thursday. Not my preference, but that's just the situation we're in. For scheduling, we have to do that because I've got several classes that are spread out over 2 or 3 classrooms because there's too many people in the class to have the right spacing in one room. So we're a little short of classrooms this semester. So just be aware of that by Thursday you're going to have to find some place that you can log into this class from on your own from somewhere. And that will be every Thursday for the semester. Monday or Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 165 will always be open for us, but on Thursdays you'll have to be able to log in from home. Okay, so let's go to course information. This is where all the important stuff for the semester is. That's my contact information there. If you need to get in touch with me, email is the best way to do it. I try to keep my email open on my other screen all day, so I get your emails rather quickly. If you are sending me materials, if you're sending me an email, I ask you do a couple of things. In the subject line of that email, put your program. So whether it's just auto or dairy herd or whatever, put your program in there so I know what class you're in. I get emails all the time asking, hey, what was our assignment in class today? Well, what class are you in? I think I teach 6 or 7 different classes, actually 8 different classes today. Trying to figure out what class you're in or remember what class you're in can be difficult, especially at this point in the semester when I don't know names yet. And then if it's a quiz or a test, put down quiz or test. So when I see your subject, if you're auto maintenance, I should see just auto is just fine. Auto quiz or auto test. That way I know what program you're in, what class you're in, and that you're sending me a test. The reason for that is I can set them aside and then I can get all the quizzes, because some of you it might be several hours over which you guys submit those quizzes or tests. I can keep them and group them together and grade them all at once. I like to do that. One, just to make sure I'm in the same mood when I grade all of them, so you all get graded the same. But also, if there's one question that everybody gets wrong or something that most people are missing, I assume that's my fault, that I didn't cover it well enough, so then I can grade accordingly. And by grading them all at once, I can pick up on that a lot easier. Or if it's not a quiz or a test, if you just send me your program, again, maybe you just say auto and then the word question. If you have a question or something you need answered, if I see the word question in the subject line, I will know it's something I need to look at and respond to quickly. So that tells me it's not an assignment submission, it's a question that you need me to respond to. So if you do that in the subject line of your emails, that'll help me respond to you a lot quicker and sort through. I typically get 50 to 80 emails a day, but with this virtual format this fall, I'm expecting probably closer to 200 emails a day. So that'll help me sort through them and get back to you quickly on those. Good morning, Deb.
Hi. Sorry, I moved from I think was a hidden part of the room to a visible part of the room. So
Sure.
Anyway, hi. I'm just curious and just stopping in to as many classrooms as I can. Which program are you guys with?
This is mostly auto, and there's a dairy herd student on the network from home today.
Okay, awesome. So I'm seeing that you have everybody that's on campus is in this classroom, right?
Yes, we've had some confusion. I know they had 162 was scheduled for this class and my morning class for CNC, but
Right.
that's been dropped from the schedule, but that hasn't been relayed to the LRC yet.
Okay, I will relay that, because I talked to the people about 162.
Okay.
It seems like you all could fit into 180.
Yeah, for morning class, 180 is the only class I have scheduled for that class right now.
Yeah, that's the only one I saw too. So this one, you guys just stay here, and then I'll just get rid of. So why, this one is popping up as 180 and 162 as well. I'm seeing.
This one is on my schedule. It just shows 165 for this class.
Yeah, I'm just saying that in the blue jeans on the bottom of the screen, I can see a desk.
Oh, yeah, I haven't dropped the. I told Alex it was okay if there was nobody in the room to just log into both 180 and 165 at the same time.
I got
That
you.
way he doesn't have to come back at 8:30.
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
haven't dropped 180 yet because I had people show up at 162 this morning when I was about ready to drop it, so I'm a little leery to drop a room
Yeah.
this semester.
We'll
But
figure it
yeah,
out.
I'll just start dropping that room once we get to this classroom every day so that he doesn't have to come in and log it out.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much. I will see you guys in auto a little bit later.
Thanks, Deb.
Yep. Have a good one, Todd.
Thanks, you too. Okay, so anyway, back to Blackboard here. Also on Blackboard on this course information section is the syllabus, which we're going to look at in a second. My schedule. Now, this is way more important when we're on campus so that you know when you can stop in my classroom and see me. But you will notice this Algebra for Calculus for Nicolay got canceled last week, so that's not there. I'm open at this time. So this window here from basically from 9:30 to 12:30 every day, at least Tuesday through Thursday, I am free. So if you need something, those are times that you can schedule a meeting with me. Once you figure out how to log into Blue Jeans, you can just if we schedule a meeting, you can log into Blue Jeans and I'll log in. It'll be just like meeting in the classroom. Hopefully, it'll go that smoothly for us this semester. But you can see that's the block of time that I'm really free to help you out if you have questions. So please feel free to send me an email. If it's something you don't think I can answer well through email, just say, hey, can we meet sometime? Can we meet Wednesday at 10 o'clock in Blue Jeans? And I'll make sure I log in. I'll respond to confirm I can make it, and I'll log in and talk to you in Blue Jeans if we have to. Also down there, this is again the Blue Jeans link. If you happen to lose it in the announcements, this is that phone option I told you about down here. You can dial in actually using this phone number, and then this is the meeting ID you would have to punch in to make it to this class. Again, there'd be no visual; it would just be audio, but it's better than nothing. And then down at the bottom of the page here is where we're going to have all the content for the semester. I will actually change this at some point. Actually, I'll do it right now. This actually won't say Unit 1, it'll say Week 1. And all of our content for Week 1 is going to be in there. Each day there will be a new post put up for that day. It'll include the link to this recorded lecture and the assignment for that day, the page numbers out of the book, or if there's a document, that'll be linked to it. And if there's a quiz for that day, that'll also be linked there under that day. So if you click on Week 1, there'll be a link that says August 25th, and under there will be a link to the lecture recording and homework. So you would see that if you go in there. Also under course information, if there's any special announcements or something, I will put it in there, but I'll also send it out to you as an announcement. The announcements I will also send to your email so you get them that way. I'm not anticipating having to cancel for weather because we can log in online. So the only thing maybe I'd have to cancel for would be an illness or something like that comes up. Okay, so let's get to the syllabus here. Syllabus has a lot of the same information we've already discussed, so we'll fly through it pretty quickly. This is applied math, which means it's fractions, decimals, percents, basic formulas, and a lot of measurement and some basic geometry. For several programs, auto technician, dairy herd, welding, a few other programs that take this course. You're here, so you don't need to know when and where it meets. There's my contact information again. Your textbook. Hopefully yours is in a little bit better shape than mine, but this is the textbook for the course. It's the green Ewan Nelson textbook, Applied College Mathematics, or it says For Math 373 at the very bottom. Actually, I think they've dropped the For Math 373 now, but that is the textbook. Contains most of what we're going to do this semester. There will be a couple of packets that I hand out as we go through. Is there anybody that does not have that textbook yet? One of you? Okay. We won't need that today. There won't be homework, but you will need it by the end of class tomorrow. Other supplies, scientific calculator is highly recommended. By highly recommended, I mean I don't see how you'd make it through the course without. It'd be really tough. People always ask, can I use my calculator on my cell phone? And I don't stop you, but the cell phone calculator has a few things it doesn't do well. One, most cell phone calculators don't do fractions at all. Through the years, I've had some students show me some different apps they could download, different calculator apps that did fractions. Almost every one of those is free for a year or two, and then they start charging for it. Once people start using it, they start to charge for it. The other thing is some calculators don't do order of operations correctly on the cell phone. If you're going to buy one, I typically recommend the Texas Instruments TI-30 if you don't have one already. Otherwise, if you have a scientific calculator that does fractions, it will get you through the course. If you're not sure, let me know and I'll look at it and let you know if it'll do everything we need. The topics for the course are listed there: whole numbers, fractions, decimals, percents, measurement, basic equations, formulas. If you're looking at that list thinking, I know all this stuff, I've had it before, there is a test out procedure. Now, I will warn you, the pass rate on that test out is only about 30%. Very surprisingly low. And the main reason for that is most of the time people look at those topics and say, I've had it before, so they jump into taking the test out without preparing. And you may have had all this before, but you start taking the test and realize, boy, I don't quite remember how to do that. So if you're considering doing the test out, come and talk to me. I can show you some sample questions and go through it in more detail with you so that you can decide if you're really prepared for the test out or if there's things you want to look over first before you take the test. The test costs $50 to attempt. I don't want you to waste your money if you're not prepared for it. Grading. Well, because of the virtual format, collecting and grading homework is going to be almost impossible, so we're not going to do it. This semester, you are basically going to be graded on, not necessarily attendance, but if you're in class and working, at the end of each class, there will be a little bit of time for homework. If you're here and working on homework, you're going to get credit for the homework. My theory on homework is that it's to prepare you for the quizzes and tests anyway. It's a learning tool, not a grading tool. So I grade the homework basically as whether you did it or not. So if you're here working, I'm going to assume you've done the homework. The rest of the grade, the other 80%, is from quizzes and tests. There are 4 unit tests in here. There's technically 5 units, but we've never finished the 5th unit, so we don't have a unit test on that. There is also a final test at the end of the semester, cumulative, that replaces that last unit test. And then quizzes about every 3 to 4 hours of class. I believe your first quiz in here comes next week on Tuesday already. So those come up pretty quickly. Accommodations, if you have any needs, whether it's a diagnosed disability, or maybe you've always struggled with tests, or you're scared of math, or had difficulties with math, please let me know. We can almost always figure out something to make you more comfortable or to help make the class more doable for you. Please let us know and we'll figure it out. Here are some contacts at each campus. If you do have disabilities that you need to discuss with them, those are the people you would go to here. The rest of this I'm going to scroll through quickly. Grading scale, standard WITC grading scale. For most of you, you're shooting for a C or better. If this is a prerequisite for other classes, you have to have at least a C, which means 79.5% or better is what you need if this is a prereq. Most of you will do better than that. I'll be totally honest with you. This is my 21st year at WITC. I have taught at least 3 sections of this class every year, sometimes 4 or 5 sections of it in a year. I've maybe had 3 or 4 students that showed up for class every day, did their work, and did not pass. The only students I've ever had that didn't pass this course are typically the ones that start missing a bunch of classes or the ones that just stop turning in their work, their quizzes and stuff. If you need to drop, you can do that, but I prefer that you talk to somebody first. Sometimes you think you're doing poorly and you're not doing as bad as you think. Or if there's a work situation or whatever, a lot of times we can work around it. Also, there might be financial aid problems if you drop a course and fall below a credit limit. So make sure that you've checked into those things, please, before you drop so they don't have to deal with a lot of problems with that later. Inclement weather, like I said, shouldn't be an issue this semester since we can log in from home. Academic integrity, don't cheat. I shouldn't have to say any more about that one. Other than that, if you've had prior learning, if you've had other college level math classes, you might want to talk to me. We might be able to get you credit for this class so you don't have to take it. So there's a possibility there. Let me know. We can take a look at it. And again, just a final note, the videos, this class is recorded and posted publicly, so anything that you say in class could be out there for other people to see and hear. And then there's a list of our units for the semester. Anybody have any questions on policies or procedures? I know I went through that kind of quickly, but typically on the first day, you don't care about this stuff anyway till we need it later on in the course. I will bring it up as we run into it. I'll bring stuff up. Okay, so as you saw in that list of topics for the course, there are a lot of topics in the class that are pretty basic. I mean, I consider some of them to be maybe as low as 6th grade type material, but that doesn't mean that this is a 6th grade level course. We're going to look at those topics in a deeper way than what you would have seen them at that point. Rather than just discussing what to do and how to do math, we're going to take a little bit of a look at why do we do things that way. The reason for that is, in many cases, you were taught what to do and you just memorized that process. And if you could memorize those processes, you did pretty well at math. But as time went on, you had thousands of these processes you memorized, and trying to remember which one goes with which problem is difficult to do. So if you understand why you're doing things the way you are, when you run into a new problem, it's easier to figure out what can be done with that problem. So as an example today, we're going to talk about one of probably the most basic concept in math, but also probably the most misunderstood concept. And that is the concept of what is a number. So if I put a 4 up here on the board, if you give me a show of hands, how many of you would tell me that that's a number? Most people would, right? You're probably thinking now there's a trick coming, so you might be a little shy about it. That actually is a numeral. The difference between a numeral and a number is a numeral is just an amount. To be a complete number, it has to have 2 parts. It has to tell me how much, but also of what. So like 4 cows is a complete number. The 4 tells me how many I have. I'm going to refer to that as the count. What do I have 4 of? Well, in this case, it is cows. I'm going to call that the name. Every number has 2 parts, a count and a name. Now, I'm not doing this to force you to label things. That's not my purpose here. But by viewing the numbers and keeping both parts of the number in mind, it explains most of those special rules we were taught for working with other forms of numbers. And we'll do a quick little run through of that here today as to how that applies to different forms of numbers. To do that, let's talk about our most basic math operations: addition and multiplication. Now you might be wondering, well, where'd subtraction go, or division even? Well, subtraction is actually part of addition. They're really the same operation. Addition is just going forward and subtraction is going in reverse. So any rules that apply to addition also apply to subtraction. Same is true of multiplication and division. They are really the same operation, just multiplication is going forward and division is going in reverse. So again, any rules that we discuss for multiplication also apply in reverse to division. Let's look at an example here. Let's say I have 4 inches plus 7 inches. So this is where you have to get over your network shyness and tell me, what does that equal?
11.
11 what?
Inches.
Inches. Good. So if we look what was happening with our count in our name here. With our counts, we had 4 and 7, and it became 11. We combined the counts. Well, let's look at the names. We had inches, and it stayed inches. When we add or subtract, we just keep the same name. Now, again, that might not seem terribly significant, but there's a couple of big differences, or at least one big difference when we go to multiplication and division. Let's look at 4 inches times 7 inches. 4 inches times 7 inches gives us what?
28 inches squared.
Perfect. 28 inches squared, or 28 square inches. So if we look at what's happening with our count in the name, we had 4 and 7. Once again, we combined them to make 28. This time we were multiplying, so we combined them with multiplication. So again, we combine the counts. In every operation we do, we are going to combine the counts in some form or another. The difference came in how we handled the names. We had inches, and it became square inches, or inches squared. When we multiply or divide, we also combine the names. Now that may not seem like a big difference, but it is. It's a huge difference. In fact, it even, not only does it describe all of the little procedures we have for other forms of numbers, it even tells us what numbers we can use in each operation. If we have something like 3 cows plus 5 boys, does that give us 8 cowboys? Well, of course not. That's kind of silly, isn't it? Or if we go the other direction, 5 boys plus 3 cows, would that give us 8 boy cows? Obviously not. But those of you in the dairy herd can tell me that that is a bunch of bull, right? I know it's a long way to go for a joke, but there's a point behind it. We cannot add cows and boys, because when we add, we're going to keep the same name. That implies that we have to start with the same name. Both of these were inches, so we kept inches. Down here, if we don't have the same name, we don't know what to keep. So we cannot combine with addition and subtraction numbers that do not have the same name. A little bit more practical application might be this. If I have 5 feet plus 2 pounds, when I add those, I get 5 feet plus 2 pounds. I cannot add those because they have different names. Now, on the other side, for multiplication and division, we don't need the same name. If I have 5 feet times 2 pounds, I am going to combine the counts. 5 times 2 is 10, but I also combine the names. Feet times pounds is foot-pounds. For those of you in automotive, that's a unit of torque. Talk about engine torque and torquing down head bolts and stuff like that to a desired amount of pressure. That's a legitimate unit. That's a perfectly fine calculation. In structures, that's a unit for the bending in the beam and a moment on a structural member. So that gets done a lot. When we multiply or divide, we do not need the same name because we're going to combine the names. So let's look at how that applies to our other forms of numbers. Let's look at everybody's favorite form of number, the fraction. Now you might notice a little sarcasm in my voice there. I realize that if I ask students on the way in the door what they hate most about math, 4 out of 5 people would probably say fractions. The other would usually say the teacher. So a little review, what's that top number of the fraction called?
Numerator.
Numerator, perfect. Bottom number?
Denominator.
Denominator, good. So you caught my little pause there. I am a terrible speller. It's not common for me to get, or not uncommon for me to get halfway through a word and forget how to spell the rest of it. If anything ever appears on here that you can't read, please don't be afraid to ask. I assure you it was intended to be in English. I either really butchered the spelling or my handwriting got bad, so I won't be offended if you ask me what something says. So a numerator, let's think about that for a second. Right now, we're actually in the process of doing the national census, where they are trying to numerate the population. What are they doing? They're counting. The numerator is a count. Well, denominator, we have different denominations of money, different denominations of organizations. To denominate means to classify or to give a name. That's a count and a name. When most people look at a fraction, they see 2 numbers, but it's not. It's one number with 2 parts. Just like having 3 cows or 3 inches, here we have 3/7. So when we go to add 3/7 plus 2/7, if you think back to 3rd or 4th grade, when you first started working with fractions, that 3rd grade teacher told us that before you can add or subtract fractions, you must have what?
Common denominators.
Common denominator, perfect. That is not a special rule for fractions. Anytime we add numbers, we must have the same name. Just like inches and inches, we could add those because they were the same name. Feet and pounds, we could not add because they were different names. So that 3rd grade teacher taught us then, once you have the common denominator, you add the numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5. And what do you do with the common denominator?
Same.
Just keep it, yes. Again, that's not a special rule for fractions. Anytime we add numbers, we combine the counts, that's adding the numerators, and we keep the same name, keeping the common denominator. It just looks a little different with fractions because fractions look a little different. Something like 3/5 plus 1/4, well, at this point, we can't add those because they have different names. In a couple weeks, when we look at fractions in more detail, we will learn how to change the names. So then we'll learn how to change the names so that we can combine those. For now, there's nothing we can do with them. When we multiply or divide, we do not need the same name. We were taught you just multiply straight across. Multiply the numerators. 3 times 2 is 6. Multiply the denominators. 7 times 7 is 49. Question is why? Well, it's not just because our 3rd grade teacher said so. If we look back, anytime we multiply numbers, we combine the counts, and then we also combine the names. Again, no special rules for fractions. If I look at my 3/5 and my 1/4, if I had 3/5 times 1/4, it doesn't matter that they have different names. I'm just going to combine the counts. 3 times 1 is 3. Combine the names. 5 times 4 is 20. So I get 3/20. All of those special rules we learned for fractions are not special. They're the same rules we had for whole numbers. Let's look at decimals. 0.21. Now the technical way of pronouncing that is 21 what?
2100s.
Hundredths. There we go. And so when we write it like that, it's pretty obvious that there's a count and a name. Excuse me. So if I go to add 0.21 plus 0.3. Is that going to work the way I have it written there?
No.
No, it doesn't. The reason why, well, this is 21 hundredths, as we said. This is 3 tenths. They have different names. Fortunately, I can rename this by just putting a 0 on the end. Now it becomes 30 hundredths. If I have that 0 on the end, now the decimal points automatically line up. And that's what we've always been taught, is when you add or subtract decimals, you have to line up those decimal points, right? Well, the reason is in order to add or subtract decimals, you have to have the same name. Lining up the decimal points is just making sure they have the same name. And then we just add 21 and 30, or 51. What do we do with the decimal point?
Bring it back down.
Bring it straight down. Again, that's not a special rule for decimals. 21 hundredths plus 31 hundredths has to be 51 hundredths. We keep the same name. Bringing that decimal point straight down is just keeping the same name. If I multiply 0.21 times 0.3, I don't have to worry about lining up the decimal point, because when I multiply, I do not need the same name. 21 times 3 is 63. Where is my decimal point going to go?
Before the 6.
Close, careful. We actually have to add a 0 before the 6 and then put the decimal point. Why? Well, we've always been taught that you have to count the number of decimal places in the problem. 1, 2, 3 total decimal places in the problem. Then in your answer, you got to start at the end and count back 1, 2, 3 total decimal places in the answer. Why? Again, not just because our 3rd or 4th grade teacher told us so. It's because this is 21 hundredths. This is 3 tenths. When we multiply, we do combine the counts. 21 times 3 is 63. But we also combine the names. Hundredths times tenths is thousandths. So when we're counting up the total decimal places in the problem and making sure we have that many decimal places in our answer, what we are doing is also combining the names. You'll find that all of these little processes we've been taught in math started out as something that involved from one of these 2 rules, but then it's been changed. We've shortened it to try to make it easier to learn. We've shortened it, and most of what we have been taught in math is a shortcut of a longer process. Now, the shortcut might be easier to remember and easier to do, but the meaning, the reason behind why things are done that way gets lost in a lot of those shortcuts. So that's one of the things we're going to do this semester, is take those shortcuts and look at what is the longer process that it came from, so you understand why it was done that way. Since we have a few minutes, we're going to take a look at this. 4x. Now, a lot of people get nervous when we start mixing our numbers with our letters or variables. But this is no different than any other number. It's an algebraic number, but it has a count. We have 4 of something. Instead of having inches or cows, we have x's. So if I go to do an operation with it, 4x plus 9x, when I add or subtract, I need the same name. Well, I have the same name. They're both x. So then I combine the counts. 4 plus 9 is 13, and I keep that same name of x. If I had 5x plus 2y, I get 5x plus 2y. Just like 5 feet plus 2 pounds, I cannot combine those with addition or subtraction because they have different names. If I go to multiply, 4x times 9x, I combine the counts. 4 times 9 is 36, and I also combine the names. Just like inches times inches became inches squared, x times x becomes x squared. Or if I have 5x times 2y, when I multiply or divide, I do not need the same name. Combine the counts, 5 times 2 is 10, and then I also combine the names. Just like feet times pounds became foot pounds, x times y becomes xy. The exact same rules as what we use in our whole numbers apply to our algebraic numbers as well. And we'll talk about scientific notation at some point in the semester. Those same rules apply. All other forms of numbers that we look at, we have that same application. Like I said, most of what we've been taught in math is a shortcut. The people that are good at math are the ones that have been good at memorizing and can keep track of all of them. But everybody's brain is actually wired to do math. It's just many people need to see why it's done that way rather than just memorizing how to do it. So hopefully throughout this semester, you'll realize that if you're good at math, maybe you'll get a better understanding of it. If you never thought you were good at math, maybe you realize you do understand math. You just needed to know why. For today, usually I'll give you anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes at the end of class to get started on homework. Today there is no homework, so you don't have to worry about that. If you don't have the textbook, make sure you have it by tomorrow. There will be homework tomorrow assigned. We'll explain that a little bit more once I assign it, but like I said, homework is a prep for your quizzes. You will be in room 165 tomorrow if you're on campus. For Wednesday. For Thursday, remember, just a reminder, you need to find a place to log in. If you can't log in from home, you'll need to find some other place to log in for class because there is no scheduled classroom for Thursday. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me drone on enough for one day, so I don't do this very often, but I'll let you out of here a couple minutes early today. We'll see you tomorrow. You guys in automotive there, is it really only 5 of you in there this year?
Well, there's supposed to be 5, but we only have 4.
Okay, one hasn't shown up yet?
Yeah.
That is probably the smallest auto mechanics group I have seen since I've been here. Usually we have like 10 to 16 people coming in the fall. That just means you get more attention in the shop, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, you all have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
You do.
Thank you. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Good, Todd. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
It was kind of